All right. Hello and welcome to the newest episode of the New Year's Six podcast. Today I'm going to be wrapping up my Power 4 conference previews by giving us a big tour of the SEC. So we've done the ACC, Big 10, Big 12. And we're going to wrap it up with America's Conference, the Southeastern Conference, with a couple of newcomers that are looking to make a name and make an immediate impact. If you have not seen any of the other conference videos, preview videos before, they're all posted. Give them a look. But from a format perspective, I'm going to start at the bottom of the conference, work my way to the top, give some thoughts, and then call out a player on offense and defense that I think is due for a breakout year, just kind of based on where the team is at. So without further ado, let's get that started. Starting at the bottom of the conference here. It's the SEC. Shouldn't be any surprises there. Vanderbilt. It is Vanderbilt until proven otherwise. I mean, this isn't baseball. That they got there. This isn't. This isn't trigonometry class where Vandy would kill it. This is the football field where they historically don't. So. Going to put Vandy in last place there. It's a year for Clark Lee on the hot seat. Needing to change things quickly. They had a little bit of a spark. I think it was in 2022 when they won 5 games, but never really got back to that mark. 2-10 last year, last place in the SEC East. Clark Lee, unfortunately, dead man walking. It's just so hard to succeed at Vanderbilt. They've had one winning record in the last decade. It's just not going to happen. So Vanderbilt 16th place. They're running pro spread in a 4-2-5 defense. We got to look at the depth chart here. So we're just looking at it real quick. Just on the offense, starting there first, I do like the addition of Diego. I'm going to get his name wrong. It's either Pavia or Pavia, coming in from New Mexico State. Keep an eye on him. I think this guy's a sleeper. I think he could end up, when it's all said and done, as one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC. When it is all said and done, I know that's a big ask for Vanderbilt, and they got a lot of changes going on in that offense in particular. Again, anything in gold is going to be a new addition, usually through the transfer portal. But I think Pavia could be and should be the bright spot on the offensive side of the ball, because the receiver room is outclassed compared to the rest of the conference. I mean, really outside of, you bring in, I'm going to get this name wrong, but Loic Foanji comes in from Texas Tech. He can make a pretty immediate impact. I like Eli Stowers coming from also New Mexico State, so you got that connection to Pavia. O-line needs a lot of work, needs a lot of help. They bring in Stephen Lasoya, who comes in from Mississippi State. He's got some experience there. They bring in Stephen Hubbard, who comes in from UTEP, so experience there. But the rest are you bring back Gunnar Hansen up the left side, so that's good. But that O-line needs some work as well. And then Cedric Alexander is very raw and unproven as a true freshman. Looking to capitalize on the success now as the number 1 back heading into his sophomore campaign. On the defensive side of the ball, not much better. I think the DB room is solid, especially those bottom 3 players. There's C.J. Taylor, DeRicky Wright, and Marlon Jones. I think there's some talent there at the safety position. There's some corners. Even Tyson Russell, he has his flashes. He has his moments. I think it's going to be an average room there. The linebacker room is going to be a little bit of a drop-off, but probably around the average to below average, especially Langston Patterson is your guy back there for Vandy. Like him as kind of your quarterback in the defense, but the DB room leaves very little to be desired for me. You have Miles Capers, and that's really it. You bring in Corday Sidnor, comes in from Purdue, but generally speaking, I see a hard time of this D-line getting any sort of pressure, especially against these SEC O-lines that they're going to play week after week. So defense going to have some problems, offense going to have some problems, but there are going to be some players that break out. On offense, that would be Cedric Alexander. So again, like had a very promising freshman campaign. Definitely something I'm interested in seeing more of over the course of the season. Nice little game against Alabama A&M, and I know that's an FCS school, but again, you have to get your touches in at some point. 21-yard catch against Mizzou, so can be that dual threat running back that you're looking for. And we do have some clips of him against that A&M team, or the Alabama A&M team that he was running well against. So let's see. I think this is either a hard and maybe one of his touchdowns. So gets the ball. Does he break through? Oh, he does. Okay. So let's watch that one more time. Just finds his hole, fights off contact, aggressively puts his body on the line and goes for the score. That's the type of run you need week after week, especially with the defenses you're going to play. He may not be able to get that opportunity against Alabama or Texas A&M, but against Alabama A&M, he shows that he's able to make those contact runs, run through them, and get the important scores that Vanderbilt's looking for. So I think Cedric Alexander has the tools that he needs to be the premier back for Vanderbilt. It's the pieces around him. Can they rise to the occasion as well? I think, Alexander being a pass threat alongside, having a new quarterback that I think can be pretty good in Pavia. Alexander should be good for a good year for Vanderbilt. So now let's go to the defensive side of the ball. So I'll go with, go with that defensive line. I'm going to go with Yohanan Owatara. I'm going to guess that's how you say it. So junior nose tackle right there in the front there. Picked up half a sack against Kentucky last year. Did get involved in the pass defense with a pass defended against Missouri and a pass defended against Kentucky. So, can get his paw up there and do what he needs to do on the defensive line. But if he's able to create pressure, if he's able to create a presence that Vanderbilt needs, it will enhance the opportunity for Vanderbilt to win games that they probably have no business winning, especially knowing that that D-line is going to be attacked. They know this, I think opponents know that this is the weak point for Vanderbilt. It's going to be that front four is going to be on their toes the whole game. And if you have someone that steps up to the plate and says we're not going to be beat, Vanderbilt could shock some people and win some games that they have no business winning. And I think it's going to take an effort from a guy like Owatara to establish himself and establish this defense in a way that I think people are overlooking right now. So I'll look at Owatara on the defensive line, Cedric Alexander at running back, as players do for a breakout season for a Vanderbilt team that, again, is going to be at the bottom till proven otherwise. So with that, in 15th place, going to be a team that has a coach on the hot seat, that doesn't have a lot of expectations going into this year. And, not a team that I particularly root against. As a Florida fan, I got no ill will against them, but that would be Arkansas. I think it's a tough climb for Sam Pittman and team. He's on the hot seat over there. I don't see them getting it done, especially after 4-win season last year. I would expect something around that mark this year. It's going to be a tough one for him. So I'm gonna take Arkansas in 15th. Just not a lot to necessarily look forward to. Just a lot of moving parts and transitional pieces that are not ready for that next step. So I'm going to take a look at their depth chart here. I like the receiver room. If I have to give him something, Andrew Armstrong is, he's a 1,000-yard guy at some point in his career. Definitely an immediate impact by a guy who's got 13 touchdowns in a season before. That's a big get. Tyrone Broden on the other side, 600-yard guy, 7 touchdowns in the past. Like that's a big get as well. Luke Haas comes, as a red zone threat and a tight end that you can rely on up and down the field. So I look at those pieces combined, and I like the receiver room a lot. O-line has a lot of question marks for me. You bring back Fernando Carmona on the left, or you bring him in, excuse me, from San Jose State. I like Josh Braun on that right guard spot. He's coming back. He's got those starts. But the rest are predominantly rotational guys or like guys that haven't 100% stepped up to the plate yet. So I don't know. The line is a little shaky to me. They bring in Taylor Green at quarterback from Boise State. You know, I don't think too much of it one way or the other. I think he's again a middle of the road quarterback for what we've expected in this league. Bringing in Jaquindon Jackson from Arkansas, that's or bringing him back, I guess. Yeah, that's a big get at running back. You know, just having that stability, having that that piece in place there. So on the defensive side of the ball, D-line is looking solid. D-line is looking good to go there. I think that's a average average line compared to the rest of the conference. You have Landon Jackson there. You have Cameron Ball. You guys who can play. Eric Gregory has his moments. So I'm not super worried about the D line. I'm not worried about the DB room either. When it's all said and done, Jaden Johnson's a threat. Hudson Clark, Donnicky Slaughter comes in from Tennessee. Like you have some guys out there that can play. The linebacker room is the one I got the most concerns about. You bring in Xavier Sori from Georgia, who's generally pretty unproven. You have Brad Spence back there, who's also young and pretty unproven in his own right. So it's just the lack of experience, which is the struggle point for me right now. So with that, on the offensive side of the ball, I'm going to go with their O-line as the breakout player. I'll go with Keyshawn Blackstock on the right tackle, comes in from Michigan State. 4-star recruit coming out of JUCO in 2023. So as he transferred to Michigan State, was a 4-star recruit. That's a potentially big get for Arkansas. They can have a potential 4-star lineman on the right-hand side, hold down the fort. It opens up your playbook a lot. If the O-line does not step up to the plate and Taylor Green's running for his life and you can't establish a run game, Arkansas is done before it begins. But if they can lock something down, especially on that right-hand side next to Josh Braun, it'll give Arkansas some options. So I think Keyshawn Blackstock is ready to make that move as a tackle and ready to step up and live up to set expectations. I think someone's got to do it at that O-line if Arkansas wants to have some program relevance right now, and it's got to be a guy like Blackstock that gets it done. On the defensive side of the ball, I'll go with Brad Spence. Again, going back to that linebacker room. Did have a pick 6 against Western Carolina. Big get, especially as a true freshman. Picked up a fumble against Texas A&M. So has that playmaker ability. Has that that chance and that opportunity to do things for Arkansas and make an immediate impact for everyone involved. So I am going to give I'm going to give Brad Spence that that opportunity and give him that chance to step up for Arkansas and make the plays that he needs to make in order to help the Arkansas defense overcome the heavy odds against them over the course of this year. So I think Brad Spence is that guy on defense. Combine that with Keyshawn Blackstone on offense, and those are the breakout players for an Arkansas team that it's a long way to go for them. Again, not rooting against them, not necessarily rooting for them, but we don't root against rivals, right? Arkansas is not one of them. So maybe it works out, but I got a hard time believing that that's going to be the case. So heading into our 14th place, another team kind of in that Arkansas stretch right now. I think the bottom 4 are fairly quote unquote obvious. It's just the order that you put them in. And I guess it's another team that has had high expectations in the past, kind of cratered down to earth. And as a result, they got a coach on the hot seat. Curious how it works out for them this year. but that team to me in 14th will be South Carolina. I think, Shane Beamer had an overhyped team last year with a very hard schedule. And now expectations are, what do we do? Because, a lot of the talent on that team is now gone. It's a lot of people who are kind of picking up the pieces as a result. Tough year last year, didn't hit 500, didn't hit a bowl game. And, now we got to decide what that future looks like. And if Shane Beamer is that guy, kind of in the same arena as Pittman, does South Carolina move forward with him? And if so, how do they proceed? I think it's going to be a tough year in Columbia, South Carolina. Probably not too much of a tough year in Columbia, Missouri, but we'll get to them in a little bit. But I don't see it coming together this year for South Carolina. So if you look at their depth charts, real quick. A couple of pieces here and there. I do like Raheem Sanders. He's the one that comes in from Arkansas. He is a pretty transformative running back. He's a top 5 in the back. I like him a lot. Like the receiver room. Jared Brown comes in from Coastal Carolina. He's a huge threat. You pair him up with Amari Huggins-Bruce. That's someone you got to keep your eye on. Nick Harbor's one of those young kids with amazing speed. I know we're all playing in college football 25 right now, and he's the cheat code with like 99 speed. Keep an eye on him, but the receiver room should be pretty good for South Carolina. O-line gonna have some guys that need to step up to the plate. I think it's gonna be a slightly below average one in terms of returning production. You do bring back Vershawn Lee. You got some starts on the left-hand side with Tree Babalade and Babalade and Jakaya Moore. So it kind of goes, more experienced into the line, and then after the center drops off pretty drastically. But it's a below average line from what I've seen. Very curious to see about Lenore Sellers taking over at quarterback. Not a lot of experience under his belt. Very interested to see how he does as the new starting quarterback for South Carolina. Now, that being said, the defensive side of the ball for South Carolina, in theory, very, very good. I'm looking it up and down. I don't see a position group that I'm worried about whatsoever. And if South Carolina is going to win games, it's going to be because of their defense. And it's hard picking out a breakout player because like everyone has that type of experience that we're looking for, right? If you're looking at the D line, I mean, all of them are players. Gilbert Edmond, Alex Huntley, Tonka Hemingway, Kyle Kennard, a lot of returning experience back there. Linebacker room, more of the same. Debo Williams and Bam Martin Scott, so a couple of great players at that position as well. Same in the DB room. O'Donnell Fortune, Nick Emanwari, DQ Smith. Emery Floyd is kind of the younger one we don't know a lot about. Jalen Kilgore, just from top to bottom, like just players at every single position for the most part. And it's definitely something, especially with Gilbert Edmond coming in from FSU. You bring in Kyle Kennard out, from Georgia Tech, to really shore up that D line and make an impact. South Carolina may not score a lot of points this year. It might be an old school SEC team of great defense, run game, and throw for 150 yards a game. But a win is a win if that's that's how you get it done. That's how you get it done. So with that, on the offense, the breakout player I've got is Lenoris Sellers. So limited playing time, behind Spencer Rattler, 86 yards and 2 touchdowns versus Furman. Had a 36-yard rushing touchdown against Vanderbilt, so he can be dual type and fill in where needed. I think we got a clip of one of those passes against Furman here. So 50-yard line, steps back, plenty of time, steps into his throw. And that's what, 50, 60 yards in the air? That's, and it looks pretty effortless. It looks like he's got more. Let's watch that one more time, shall we? Because we're on the 50. He throws from about the 45, just short of the 45, So that's 55 yards in the air. He's a few yards deep and in the end zone. Yeah, you're talking just south of 60 yards all the way in the air. And it didn't look like he put all of his arm into it. It looked pretty effortless. Yeah, effortless. Yeah. That could be big for South Carolina. If you've got a guy with a cannon back there and you've got a speedster on the outside and Nick Harbor, this could be a dangerous duo for South Carolina. Maybe they prove some people, myself included, wrong, but it's going to be on the back of Lenore Sellers. On the defensive side of the ball, we're going to go with Bam Martin-Scott. So that other side of the linebacker duo there. Picked up a sack against Vandy in Tennessee, a pass defended against Vanderbilt. So a guy who can play up if needed, a guy who can play back if needed. It's really just going to depend on the play style, but I don't see South Carolina having a problem on defense whatsoever. And even in this case, it was hard for me to pick out that breakout player because, again, everyone in this team seems to have made an impact in some capacity. So I'm going to take Bam Martin-Scott to have a big year within the SEC and potentially beyond as he established himself as one of the linebackers of the, of the immediate future, because this is his last year. He's a grad student, but has a lot of experience, especially in that front seven, and it's going to be a pain for people to play against up front. So I think it's going to be a big performance by Bam Martin-Scott before he moves on to whatever his next venture in life looks like. So be on the lookout for Martin-Scott and be on the lookout for Lenore Sellers. So as we head into 13th place, I think, again, this is more of, those bottom four teams and kind of where they end up. And this is the next one. This is the one with the new head coach. This is the one with a lot to prove, and I just think it's going to take a little bit of time to get that done. It's going to be Mississippi State. So Jeff Lebby is comes in as the former Oklahoma offensive coordinator. Now he's the head coach at Mississippi State. And I mean, big opportunity, but also, big holes to fill. It is not going to be a easy job where you can come in and fix things immediately. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some effort. And, again, we don't root against people who aren't rivals. So very curious to see how Levy's going to do in year one. Upgrading the offense to veer and shoot, bringing that 3-3-5 defense. It's interesting to see how the changes to this team, impact the overall, team for this year as well as beyond. So as we look at the depth chart here, obviously going to be a lot of gold on here as we bring in a lot of new players when you have a new coach. So on the running back spot, curious about Jeffrey Pittman, what he's going to do, what he's going to bring to the position. Blake Shippen, I think is okay. I think he's a good plug for right down for Mississippi State. Just again, very interested to see how that all plays out. But he's obviously not your guy of the future. He's a senior, but I think he's that guy that you just hold on to for 1 year as you determine what your future ends up looking like. Receiver room is solid to below average. I do like you bringing in Kelly Akari. I'm not going to get this one. Akari from UTEP. That's the type of guy that makes an immediate impact for you. Combine that with Kevin Coleman coming in from Louisville, and you got your options there. O-line is the one I got the most questions about. You get a lot of uncertainty with everyone coming in from all over. You have Ethan Miner comes in from North Texas. Macklin Pounders comes in from Memphis. So there's a lot of plug and play people at the moment. I'm just curious how that works in terms of compatibility immediately up front. I think it's going to take some time for everyone to settle in and come together as a unit. On the defensive side of the ball, I think it's going to be problems as well. I don't see an immediate elite group on this defense. I think just looking at everything, they're probably going to be bottom five across the board. D-line, you bring back DeMonte Russell, but I don't know what you do outside of that. You look at the linebacker room. I like Stone Blanton, comes in from South Carolina. J.P. Purvis, he's got some moments. But again, you're comparing this to the rest of your conference. And that's the issue I'm having here, is that it's linebackers and D lines and DB rooms against Georgia's and Alabama's and Texas and Oklahoma's and LSU's, which it's going to be a tough battle to go up against. Same with the DB room, because outside of Corey Ellington, I don't know who your big guy is back there, who your leader is back there. So you got one, which is a good start, but you need something more than that if you want to make a splash in the SEC. So with that, on the offensive side of the ball, I will go with Jeffrey Pittman. So had a 98 yards rushing and a touchdown versus Southern Miss. Had a receiving touchdown against Alabama and Arizona. So he's had his moments sporadically. I think he's going to have a bigger share, of the rushing game this year, and make an immediate impact. I think we've got that receiving touchdown against Arizona. So we got that. And he just escapes the tackle and just runs it in. This was very early on in the season. I thought for a second this was their bowl game, but just fakes the outside, avoids the tackle, gets a good block, and then just outspeeds him at the end. Does what he needs to do. So if you can make a play like that in a high stress environment, I mean, that's an overtime game against what ended up being a quality Arizona team long term, right? So if you can do that long term, if you can do that week in and week out, you'll have a place in the SEC. You'll have a place on this roster. It's a matter of whether or not. I guess it's not a matter of can. It's a matter of will he, right? So I keep my eye on Pittman. If I'm a Mississippi State fan, I think he's going to be the guy to step up to the plate for an overall talented team that is just going to find its identity over the course of this year. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I'll go with Kedrick Bingley Jones, who comes over from North Carolina, 4-star recruit in 2020, has just never found his footing in Chapel Hill. But the great thing about the transfer portal, and I am pro-transfer portal, the great thing about the transfer portal is it gives guys like this who didn't pan out in one place a chance to pan out somewhere else. And I think this could be the case for Bingley Jones. This could be the case where he ends up making an impact on a new team at a new school in a new conference and rising to that 4-star recruit ability. It just hasn't happened yet. Doesn't mean it will never happen. Doesn't mean it can't happen. Just means that it hasn't happened. Time will tell, but I think the ability is there. The opportunity is there. It's just a matter of, can he make the most of it moving forward? So, Bingley Jones on the defensive side of the ball, Pittman on the offense. So, as we head into 12th, again, this is more of the meat of the conference. We're a quarter of the way done. I think this is a team that a lot of people have in like this 13 to 10 range, so to speak. But with that, we're going to go with Kentucky. Just an average squad last year. Mark Stoops has somehow elevated as well as disappointed in those expectations. Elevated in the sense that, like, Kentucky football before Mark Stoops was terrible. They were one step above Vanderbilt. But now that expectations are elevated, it feels like they can't get back to what, those 2018 when they went 10 or 11 games. It feels like that's always going to be like a footnote, and it's never going to be possible again. I don't think it happens this year. Again, I'm not saying it cannot happen, but I just don't think this is the year where that happens. And we'll talk about their team in a little bit. There's returning production in a couple key areas, so they could, again, upset some teams that they have no business beating, but I don't think they have the legs to go the distance and compete for a conference championship or anything of that nature. So with that, we go to their depth chart real quick. I'm just going from top to bottom. O-line is going to be one of their biggest strengths there. They bring a lot of returning production back there, especially left to right. You look at Marquise Cox, Dylan Ray, Eli Cox, Jagger Burton. There's more than enough experience and more than enough spots on that line that have been allocated over the years and that are coming back. So I think the line should be more than serviceable enough for this Kentucky team. The receiver room is going to be a little bit average. I think Dane Key is going to make some noise, as is Barry and Brown. You get those guys coming back, but you need more than that if you're looking at competing for the SEC championship or to compete for a playoff spot. It's going to take more than two guys coming back to make a difference there. I think their biggest strength is going to be that running room. They got that 1-2 punch of Diamante Trianum and then Demi Sumo Karnbaye. Wow, that's a mouthful. Those two back-to-back are going to be a problem. And then I'm just curious how Brock Vanderbilt does as a new home after transferring in from Georgia. So that's the only real unknown. Again, Brock Vanderbilt has this year as well as next year. So this could be a Kentucky team that's building something for the future when it's all said and done. But definitely won't be on the defense because the defense is loaded right now. It's a lot of experience up there. From pure production standpoint, it's the best DB room in the conference. Zion Childress is a phenomenal safety. Maxwell Hairston is a top-tier cornerback. Jordan Love is back there. Jonquez Hardaway, it's a room where it just goes 1, 2, 3, 4. There's no stopping this team on that front. Kind of the same with the D line. This is one of the better ones in the conference where you have Deion Walker, you have Josiah Hayes and Trayvon Ribka. Just again, elite athletes at every single position where they should be one of the better ones in the conference now. Again, same with the linebacker room. This should be a top 5 linebacker room. Derek Jackson. You bring in Jamin Dumas Johnson from Georgia. That's an immediate impact player. Alex Afari, and then J.J. Weaver. It's hard to narrow it down to just one. I go up and down, and I'm like, that's an elite player. That's an elite player. Kentucky defense is going to be phenomenal. I think that healthy comparison to South Carolina, right, where it's the offense may be a little wonky, but that defense is going to be great. I think Kentucky is just that next step up in that prophecy there. So with that, on the offensive side of the ball, I will go with Vandegrift, again, transferring in from Georgia. So we do have, what do we got here? This is from his game against UT Martin. This is just, I think, one of those passes here. And this is that touchdown he's got. So it's a little underthrown, but he made the right read, stayed calm. I'm going to give it one more play on that. I'm going to give that one more. I think it should be stopping in a second. Or I think maybe there's a replay. I don't need to see fat Georgia fans on my. So 77 yards passing, and then it picked up a TD against UT Martin. Again, it was a beat-up game. He's in relief for. So it's about a 30-yard pass. Just out, beats his guy. Makes the right read. Everything along those lines. It's just a smart play. It's a little underthrown, but it's your first game of the season. It's the backup. I'm sure that'll get fixed. So once he's able to establish that camaraderie and that chemistry with those established receivers, it's going to be a problem for Kentucky or Kentucky's opponents. Excuse me. I think Vandegrift could be that next step and that guy that you need to see if you are Kentucky. It's just going to take some time to have that all gel out together. And on the defensive side of the ball, we'll go with J.J. Weaver, who Had a 2-sack performance against Clemson, picked up a fumble after forcing it out against Louisville, and that's the highlight we have. I love that we have highlights on defense. Those guys never get enough love on here. So let's see what we've got here. I think he punches it out. That's this next one here. So Louisville's running it up, just punches it out, and then picks it up in the pile. Just a smart play, especially if you look at the score, what? 20 seconds left in the third. Louisville's up by 3. That's the game changer. That completely shifts your momentum. And, having that guy back there, like who's had such a key play in a rivalry game, they can do this all season. That's a big thing that you need if you're Kentucky. So I think Weaver's going to make more plays like that over the course of the season. He's going to have a huge impact on that linebacker room. Yeah, just punches it out. Just wraps up, and then he gets it at the bottom of the pile, just aggressive, staying with it. So, I think Weaver is your guy back there at the linebacker room, and the type of guy that you want to play around if you're on Kentucky's defense, especially if you're one of those younger guys that doesn't have a lot of starts. Now, if you look at this Kentucky defense, it's surrounded by seniors, so there's not a lot of those guys, but you need someone as a leader, and Weaver will be that guy for Kentucky this year. So we got Weaver on the defense, Vanderbilt on the offense for a Kentucky team that should be around the same mark that they had last year. I know they were around 500. I think they'll be around that as well again this year. So as we move to 11th place, I would like to preface this before we get the pitchforks out, before we get the hate comments. With a conference as stacked as the SEC, someone is going to disappoint. Someone is going to fall below expectations and have a bad year. It happens every single year. Remember when Texas A&M was top 10 and ready to take on the world? Remember when Texas's back was a meme? Arkansas was in the top 10 at one point, and then they cratered off the earth. Mississippi State was the number 1 team in college football, and the first college football playoff poll ever came out. These things happen, and then time shifts, and things fade away. So, in 11th place, I have a team that has a ton of hype around them, has a ton of expectations around them. But at some point, whether it's in this conference or this team specifically, the wheels have to fall off eventually. And I think this is the year that happens. Come on. Yeah. Put it on the locker room board there, Kirby. I'm calling you out. Georgia finishes in 11th. I'm calling it how I see it. The schedule was way harder this year. We see the pieces kind of breaking around the team right now. The way that I described it, I thought last year's team was the equivalent of the 09 Gators, right? Like the team that should have won it all and made the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. I think this is the 2010 Gators. And then magically, they fall short of things, and Kirby has heart problems, and I don't want to be around this anymore. I'm letting all these kids down. Like they're on the same exact path. It's funny. It's funny how when your rival wins that way, you've got to emulate it. But that's what's going on at Georgia. I just don't see. I think the wheels are going to fall off, and it's going to shock a few people. I know they're built like a well-oiled machine right now, and they can kill everyone. But at a certain point, it's going to come apart. And I think this is the year that it happens, to the shock and awe of everyone around us. So if we look at the depth chart here, if we look at it across the board, offense has quite a bit of returning production. They're predominantly Carson Beck. Obviously, guy comes in as one of the most highly touted quarterbacks in the country. I see no reason why he doesn't live up to that hype this year. O-line has some returning guys. They got some big boys. Ernest Green comes back. Tate Ratledge, Xavier Truss. There's some some guys with a lot of experience back there. So I think you got the core pieces in place. I think you're ready to make an impact there. On the receiver room, I think you got a solid one there from a returning production standpoint. Dominic Lovett is going to be someone you look to. Oscar Delp has his moments as a tight end. When I did this evaluation, I assumed Ra Thomas was going to be on that team. He is no longer on said team, but I had him on here as kind of that number one guy. So what did they do now at the receiver room with Ra not there anymore? And then the running back room, you bring in Trevor Etienne, trader from Florida, and what type of impact does he make for Georgia as the day one starter for them now? The defensive side of the ball, where I'm at with them, it's not a matter of skill, it's a matter of experience. So with so many players going to the draft year after year after year, you've got to be able to plug and play. Do all of these players pan out? That is my question for Georgia at company. If you look at the D-line, I like Nazir Stackhouse, but the other guys there, I'm not too sold on. So it's a matter of those surrounding pieces. They will step up eventually, don't get me wrong, just by virtue of them being at Georgia. But if we're looking at pure returning production, I see Stackhouse, and that's more or less it. If we look at the linebacker room, I would say this is a step in the right direction. You got, I'm not going to say his name right, but Smael Mondin, that's your guy back there. CJ Allen has his moments. Michael Williams at the linebacker, he has his moments. So I would say this room's a little bit deeper. But again, still some pieces that I'm not too sold on. DB room, again, a little bit better in my eyes, but what do you do outside of Malachi Starks? Malachi Starks is a dog. I'm not going to clown him like that. He's elite. Dan Jackson back there is, I don't think he's elite, but he's up there. You got a budding one at corner with Dalen Everett. But there's some guys around him that don't have that experience as of right now, and they're going to need to learn it quickly because Georgia is the game that everyone circles on the calendar. Georgia is the game that Colorado thinks they are, right? Where it's like we're everyone's Super Bowl. Georgia is everyone's Super Bowl. Like that's the way I would look at it. This is the game. This is a team with a target on their back that people are going to come after and play harder as a result. And can these younger guys that are being plugged into a difficult position step up immediately and respond? So on the offensive side of the ball, breakout player, I think I hate giving this guy any credit after everything that he's put us through, but it's going to be Etienne. So comes in from Florida. I want to look at that game against LSU that he had last year. Had 99 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. Was like the offense against LSU. So I think we got one of those runs here. This is about a 20-something yard run. Just snakes through, gets around, good speed. Kept Florida in that game, but I hope someone hits him in the mouth. Dude, just cemented it. Good guard pull by Barber. Good moves there. And then to the house. So just good reads. Opened up a couple holes, made the most of them, and I imagine with Georgia's O-line being better than Florida's O-line, we can speak facts on this channel. That his opportunities will come, as the premier back for Georgia. So I think Etienne is due for a big year, but I just, I can't root for the kid in any capacity after what he's like. I hate Georgia with every bone in my body. I cannot. I'm waiting for someone to put a Brandon Spikes level hit on this kid. But I digress. We'll see you, November 2nd in Jacksonville. I got my date scheduled too, buddy. So on the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to go back to that D-line, and I'll go with Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins. So, again, a guy that had a good game against Florida, had a sack, forced fumble recovered, so just beat up on Graham Mertz last year. 3 tackle performance against Ole Miss. So a guy that's been predominantly rotational, but has stepped up in a key moment. Like we all know that Kirby Smart treats Florida Georgia like his own Super Bowl, because when he was a student, he got beat soundly every single year. So he takes it personally. So if you can make that type of impact in Kirby's biggest game, you're going to see the field. And I think he's going to see more than his. I mean, he's going to see his role evolve into less of a rotational player, more of a solid starter, and as a result of that, make a name and an impact for himself on that D end. So I'm gonna lean on Ingram Dawkins there on the defensive side, ETN on the offensive side for a Georgia team that I do think hits below expectations. And I might be the only one saying it, and I might be crazy for thinking it, but you come here for unique hot takes, and I think that's going to be one of it. It's going to be somebody, right? It can't just be the top 10 ends up as the top 10, right? Why even play? Someone's going to have to rise to the top. Someone's going to have to fall short, and I'm picking Georgia to fall short. So in 10th place, we go with one of our newcomers. So, and it's not going to be the one with a ton of expectations on them. It's going to be the one that's a program in the works. I'm going Oklahoma. Brett Venables back, signed that huge extension, here for year 3 and ready to make a move to the SEC after bouncing back pretty well last year. Can they adjust to the SEC way of doing things? I mean, on its face, yes. Brett Venables is a fantastic recruiter, and from an X's and O's perspective, he's a fantastic coach. Oklahoma long-term is in a pretty good spot. It just may take a little bit of time. It's not a particularly friendly schedule in year 1. And, I look at where they're at. Oklahoma is in the not there yet category for me. Like, they're building something good, but they're just not there yet. If we look at their depth chart, interesting to see what Jackson Arnold does at QB now that he is fully taken over. O-line, to me, has some question marks. You do bring in a couple of transfers that are going to make an impact. You bring in Branson Hickman, who comes in from SMU. Febechi Nwawu, who comes in from North Texas. Those are seasoned starters that are going to do something special for you there. For an O-line that really needs the help. I think the O-line is the one with the most questions to me, even more than Jackson Arnold, because, again, like, we've seen glimpses of him play. The O-line has a lot of guys that, to me, have been predominantly more like rotational guys. So how are they going to step up when they're more of a full-time player? From a skill position perspective, the receiver room is looking good. Nick Anderson is your guy, up there. He's your number 1. And you got a great number 2 coming in from Purdue and Deion Burks. So those two make a pretty immediate impact. I like Jake Roberts at tight end coming in from Baylor. So I'm not concerned about the receiver in any capacity. I think it ends up looking like a top 5 room when it's all said and done. Same with the running back room. I like Gavin Sawchuk a lot. I think he's going to be a top 5 running back in the conference by the time this is done. So as of right now, if Oklahoma builds the trenches and Jackson Arnold lives up to expectations, offense is going to have no problems at all. And if we're looking at things in a tier, the defense is going to be good. If I look at that South Carolina, Kentucky model, Oklahoma is the next version of that, where, we may not know what the quarterback looks like. We know we have a great running back game, and the defense is going to be something special, especially the linebacker room and the DB room. Danny Stutzman is potentially the best linebacker in the conference, if not the country, right? That, the T-shirt quote of all ages, Oklahoma fears God, but Texas fears Oklahoma. Bars, that's the type of mentality you need to come into a conference like this. And you combine that with Kip Lewis, you have the best linebacker duo in the conference. DB room is not that much of a drop-off. You got Woody Washington at corner, Billy Bowman at safety, Kendall Dolby, Gentry Williams, Robert Spears Jennings, like a lot of guys who are coming back and are hungry and ready to make this move. If you look at the D-line, You bring in Dominic Williams from TCU, combine that with Ethan Downs, Trace Ford. Like, you got players at every position on this defense. It's hard to narrow it down to one. That's where I'm at with this, right? Where it's a good-looking defense. It may be like an old school, Brian Bosworth type Oklahoma team, and I don't think fans are going to complain. If Oklahoma exceeds this 10th place expectation, it's going to be on the back of the defense. It's going to be on the back of the running game. It's going to be the O-line stepping up. It's going to be Arnold living up to expectations. There's a lot of ifs, right? I don't think the defense is an if. I think it's more of a when. It's more of a guaranteed. It's more of a sure thing. But on the offensive side of the ball, we're looking for a breakout player. Let's go with Jake Taylor on that O-line, 4-star recruit in the class of 2022, looking to continue to make that name for himself, continue to make an impact, and has been a rotational guy for Oklahoma so far, but never really established himself yet. I think this is the year that it happens. I think this is the year he steps up and delivers for Oklahoma, and establishes himself as the right tackle of the future. Especially for an O-line that needs a leader and needs a young guy to step up. He's the youngest one out there, and he's going to potentially start for a reason. So I'm going to give it to Jake Taylor to see if he can get it done on that side of things. On the defensive side of the ball, I'll go with Dejon Terry, on the D-line there. Again, I think this is going to be a good-looking defense from top to bottom that includes the D-line. So Terry picked up a sack against Texas, 2 tackles against West Virginia. So the pieces are all there. He's made those impact plays, especially getting pressure on that D-line. It's going to be a matter of, does he make more as time progresses? So I think Terry's due for a big year. There's going to be so much focus on other parts of this defense. It may allow Terry to luck into some potentially really good situations and really good matchups, and I think the kid's going to make the most of it. So I think Terry on defense, Taylor on offense, you have your 2 tackles on both sides of the ball. Those are the guys that are going to step up for an Oklahoma team that adjusts to their new home. And it may take a little bit of time, but, a team that you would look at long-term and think to yourself, they really do belong here. As we move to 9th place, this would be not one of our newcomers, but one of our former newcomers, if you want to go back about a decade, a team with a new head coach and something to prove and a big chip on their shoulder. And, they certainly don't want to be second fiddle to another team in their state. So 9th place, I'm going to go with Ole Aggies there. I'll go with Texas A&M. They bring in Mike Elko from Duke, their former defensive coordinator. Jimbo is gone. The 8-4 memes are going to write themselves, but they didn't get there last year. They finished 7-6. Obviously Elko wants more than that in year one. I think if we're looking at the team that he's inherited combined with the team that he has started to build, I think the 8-4 memes are probably back on the menu, but that's okay for a year one head coach as the conference has gotten substantially harder. So with that, we look at the newest depth chart for Texas A&M. So O-line has some dudes. I do like that. Trey Zune, and then looking from the center right, Mark Naboo, Chase Basantis, Ruben Fothery II. There's a lot of starts and a lot of experience on this offensive line, especially with some of these guys being so young. So I look to that and I think to myself, this is a good-looking offensive line for the future of this team. When it does come to the rest of the team, I do have my concerns. Linebacker, or the receiver room is about average for where they are in the conference. You do have Noah Thomas still there. You still have Moose Muhammad and Jade Walker. So you've got some yard guys. You've got some red zone guys. Like you've got a receiver room that can compete with the rest of the conference. I don't think it's it's elite. Obviously losing Evan Stewart hurts. And if he were there, like I think this room would be a little bit more competitive. But they got to learn how to fill that hole, and they got to learn how to fill it quick. Wegman comes back, quarterback, second year as a starter. Can he stay healthy? Can he live up to those expectations? From a pure returning production standpoint, we have not seen that, so it is hard to evaluate him as a top tier quarterback. I haven't seen it yet. Not saying it's impossible, but if he stays healthy and he delivers, A&M will exceed this 9th place expectation. And then kind of the same at the running back room. Le'Veon Moss, can he live up to the expectation as well? Can he deliver and rise to the occasion? We will see. But I think for A&M, the offense is not going to be their strong point. The defense will be. And again, if we're looking at the Oklahoma, Kentucky, South Carolina, that type of model, A&M fits into that as well, where we have a D-line that is about average in the conference from a returning production standpoint. You bring in, Nick Scourton from Purdue, he's going to make an immediate impact for you. You bring in Cassius Howell from Bowling Green. I think he's a guy that makes an impact for you pretty instantly. Between the two guys, if they have the same numbers they've had in the past, that's 20 sacks between the two of them. Like, that's a D-line that's getting pressure and making quarterbacks' lives hell. If they can do that again, just the two of them, take take the tackles out of the equation for a second. Just those two, that means A&M is having a great day on defense. It means they're averaging at least 1 to 2 sacks a game. That's what you want to see. Will that happen? I don't know. But based on what we've seen, it theoretically could happen if they're paired together. Linebacker room is looking nice, as is the DB room. I like the combination of Torian York with Solomon DeShields, who comes in from Pitt. Keep an eye on those two together. That could be a dangerous duo when it's all said and done for Texas A&M. Same with the DB room. Trey Jones at safety comes in from Central Michigan. That's the type of guy you want back there. At corners, you got Tyreek Chappell with BJ Mays, who comes in from UAB. Those are some guys that are playmakers. Those are some guys that make immediate impact for you back there. Combine that with the nickelback Bryce Anderson, and you have a DB room and a linebacker room that should both be top 5 in the conference. It's more so the other pieces that I worry more about, but the DB room, the linebacker room are not worry pieces for me for Texas A&M. But let's look at our breakout players. And on offense, we'll go with Le'Veon Moss, not Moss. I don't know. I must have typed too quick. But Le'Veon Moss, if we look at his numbers from last year, 97 yards and a rushing and a touchdown against Auburn, and then a nice 30-yard run against Arkansas. Now let's see what this is. Auburn. So just picks his spot, hits the hole. I think he gets stopped, but it's a big run. I think his touchdowns are like close to the line, but it's just a smart run. Look at this. Just waits for the hole to be formed, and turns what could be a 2-yard play into a 20, 30-yard run. Like it's a smart ball carrier move right there. And it puts your team in. Let's watch that one more time. How long was the actual run? So it starts at the 40. Okay, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. Yeah. So that just the patience to make the correct cut turned. Because it's a design run, right? So if he follows the blockers, he gets 2-3 yards, and he makes a smart decision to open, to see the hole and go for 35. Like, if you can do that against Auburn again this year, if you can do that against Arkansas again this year, or Texas or LSU, those are the games that are going to keep Texas A&M from the conference championship or a playoff spot. If he can rise to the occasion and make the most of it for this team, then Texas A&M is going to do some special things this year with him running back. And then on the defensive side of the ball, go with Albert Regis, nose tackle there.
So has played sparingly. I believe this is a part of the oil money class from a couple of years ago where A&M just threw the truck at anyone with a pulse on defense and brought him in. All those top tier guys. I believe he's one of the ones that stuck around. So Albert Regis, did pick up a sack against Arkansas, had a 3-tackle performance against Ole Miss this past year. He's the type of guy to me that will evolve into less of a rotational player and more of a full-time starter at the nose tackle, especially knowing that he does have eligibility left after this year. Like, what does he do to make the most of it and secure a spot for himself over the next couple of years? I think this is the turning point for Regis where if he falls back into more of a rotational guy, he's probably not at A&M after this year. But I believe he's going to evolve into his role, be the starter that A&M needs, and especially with the focus on guys like Scourton, Torian York, Solomon Shields, like players at those linebackers and other spots, Shamar Turner, guys like that are going to take the heat off of him. So to me, I look at that and say, Regis will get opportunities by virtue of others being occupied and will make the most of them. So I'll take Regis on the defense. I'll take Moss on offense for an A&M team that, again, kind of like Oklahoma, kind of like Mississippi State, like trying to find that identity with either a new conference or a new coach. And, it's going to take some time, but A&M will be fine. They made the right hire. So as we move to 8th place and we head to the middle of the conference here, you get a team that, as far as I'm concerned, like is in somewhat of a rebuild. Again, trying to find who they are and can they rise to the occasion? A team that's always going to be in the thick of it just by the brand that they've built, the coach that they have, everything along those lines. But just some question marks that are going to potentially keep them out of the top 5 conversation. We'll go with LSU. So I got LSU in 8th place here. Brian Kelly, year 3. Good looking year last year at 10-3. They've looked good at LSU so far, but when you lose a Heisman, quarterback, you lose a top 10 receiver pick. When you lose some talent around this team, it's going to take some time to fill it. So I would imagine LSU takes a step back on that pace, but they're building something good down there in Baton Rouge. It's just going to take a little bit of time before we come to realize it. So if we look at the LSU depth chart real quick, just starting on the O-line is looking good. You return 4 starters in Will Campbell, Garrett Dillinger, Miles Frazier, and Emory Jones. No concerns there. That's a top 5 O-line in the conference, easy. Everything else, though, is where I've got my concerns for you. So the receiver room outside of Kyron Lacey has some younger guys that have not risen to the occasion yet. It's going to take some time, but will they over the course of this year? And that's going to separate LSU finishing 4th or finishing 8th. Are they going to be in the playoff hunt? Are they going to be at the Citrus Bowl? It's going to depend on some receivers stepping up. Same with Garrett Nussmeier. Can he step up into the shoes that Jaden Daniels has left? Those are legendary shoes. I don't think he needs to be that. I think he needs to be serviceable, and I think he needs to be smart. And we'll see a little bit more of him over the course of the year. And then same with Josh Williams at running back. What can he do to establish himself as a great SEC running back? Because as of right now, it doesn't look like LSU has one in particular. So what is he going to do to make sure that he is that guy for LSU? On the defensive side of the ball, D-line is the one I've got the concerns about. They do have Braden Swinson, who I like there. Savion Jones on the other end. I like the ends, but the tackles in the middle are the ones that I have some concerns about that haven't necessarily stepped up to the plate. Linebacker room has some talent, to say the least. Between Greg Penn and Harold Perkins in particular, 2 guys that I mean, Harold Perkins is to the draft this year, so he's gone. Greg Penn's a senior, he's gone. A lot of experience back there. A lot of players have stepped up to the plate. Same with the DB room. You bring in Jordan Gilbert from Texas A&M, Major Burns, Sage Ryan, and then PJ Woodland, who I believe is going to start as a true freshman. It's a big ask to start immediately as an 18-year-old in the SEC in Death Valley. Like, that's a big ask. But if LSU thinks he's ready, then it's a matter of time. Can he step up to the plate? But I like the DB room. I like the linebacker room. The D-line is the one I got my concerns about. But if I look at my breakout player on offense, I'll take Nussmeier. So we saw him play sparingly, like obviously starting the bowl game against Wisconsin, 51-yard pass against Army. So let's just see a little bit of what that looked like over the course of last year. So this is that bowl game performance. I'm going to turn my AC on at the same time. It's roasting. It's just going to have some background noise. So that's this. I'm going to watch that one more time. But it's how good we're playing it back. So in the air, just beat the coverage. Perfect. So, yeah, those are the type of throw. That's a big game throw. Let's watch that one more time. Can't give much commentary. So it's about 38 yards, steps back, steps into the throw, beats the coverage, and I mean, just perfect. That's the type of opportunity that he'll get week after week after week at LSU. I look at that and I think, that's an SEC-ready quarterback and someone that's going to create problems for DBs over the course of the season. Nussmeier can be that guy and can be the one that steps up to the plate. It's just going to be a matter of time for LSU. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to go with Jalen Lee, who did pick up a fumble against Grambling State, so has made that presence felt. Was a 4-star recruit in the class of 2020, so has made an impact and made a difference. Going to be a matter of, can you do it full time? Again, predominantly rotational guy, predominantly a guy that has kind of seen the field off and on over the last couple of years, transferring from a couple of different schools. We got Florida at one point. I think it was Florida to LSU. Yeah. So can he find the field permanently, and can he make an impact when he's there? I think he can. I think he can live up to that expectation. Just hasn't cracked out yet. I think it will this year. I think the need for someone on the D line to get that pressure will create the opportunity for Jalen Lee to step up to the plate and make that impact. So I look at Lee on the D line, Nussmeier on the offense for an LSU team that it's a little bit of a step back, but is building something very special for the future. As we move to number 7, I think the theme of building something special for the future is the most appropriate way to describe this team as well. So without further ado, let's go with our 7th place team, Auburn Tigers. Auburn has a very favorable schedule. I like what Hugh Freeze is building as well. They've got some players there that are going to make a pretty immediate impact, that are going to show up in the SEC and turn Auburn around. Auburn hasn't been a really super relevant program in the conference for a couple of years at this point. And they've been, like, when they have had moments of relevancy, they get memed back into irrelevancy. But I think Freeze is the guy to turn them around. So I think this is the year where that happens, where you see the pieces being built and you see everything coming together. And from there, what happens as a result of the work that's put in across the board. If I look at the depth chart for this team, O-line has a couple starters coming back. You got Dylan Wade coming back. You have Xavier Miller, the right tackle. So those 2 out of 5 coming back is good. Would like to see a little bit more. It's an O-line that I think has couple holes and a couple question marks that need to be addressed if Auburn is going to make a run in any capacity. Receiver room has basically all new faces when it's all said and done. I like Rivaldo Fairweather at tight end. That's your red zone threat. But you bring in a couple of guys that, make that immediate impact. You bring in Robert Lewis from Georgia State, Keandre Lambert-Smith from Penn State, and then Cam Coleman is this super hyped true freshman that is going to start at that wide receiver position. I'm curious to see what he can do and the impact that he can immediately make. At quarterback, I feel like I'm the only one on the planet that's high on Peyton Thorne. At one point, the kid was a 3,000-yard passer. At one point, he's a 27-yard passer or a 27-yard touchdown passer. Like, if he can hit those numbers again, how is that impossible? It's been done once. I know it was probably at Michigan State, but it's like, why can't he do it at Auburn? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills thinking that Peyton Thorne could end up as one of the better quarterbacks in the conference. And I think with the way that things have been built around him now at Auburn, Thorne could be your guy. And then Jarquez Hunter at running back, I think, is average. He's almost a 1,000-yard guy when it's all said and done. So I'm curious to see how that's all works out when the season comes into fruition. Defense kind of the same as well. D-line is going to be a below average. I like Keldrick Falk, but outside of him, I don't see the surrounding pieces that would really need to make an impact. Linebacker room will be average. I like Eugene Asante, Jalen McLeod, Austin Keys. So there's talent back there for sure. Definitely not saying there's none. This is compared to the rest of the conference. So you take those three compared to another room, and there's just a couple of linebacker rooms I like a little bit more at this point. Linebacker room will be serviceable. It's not going to lose them games, that's for sure. I just don't think it's elite. I don't think it's a top 5 room when it's all said and done. DB room, average to below average. They bring in Jaron Thompson from Texas. That's a big pickup. They have Keontae Scott at the corner. That's a big get as well. Those two in particular kind of lay down the law and make that immediate impact for Auburn. The rest will get better around them. The rest are a little bit younger as well, predominantly juniors and sophomores. Their experience will come over time. So when I look at Auburn and their breakout player on offense, I'll go with Jeremiah Wright on that offensive line. Someone's got to step up. Someone's got to protect Peyton Thorne. Someone's got to establish a run offense. I think Wright will be the guy, especially if he teams up with Isaiah Miller on the right tackle. Those two are going to combine for a right-hand side that accelerates this offense and makes it better. It makes it easier for everyone to succeed. It will help the receivers. It'll help the running back. It'll help the quarterback. And I think Wright needs to be the guy to step up, knowing that he is a senior. This is the last year of eligibility. Can he make a difference before his time at Auburn comes to an end? Time will tell, but I think he's able to do so. On the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to go with Trill Carter. Comes in from Texas. So these are some Big 12 stats I got for you. Picked up that game against TCU that he had. That's the big one I look at. Sack, forced fumble recovered. That's the type of performance you need. I know that's TCU was a little bit down last year, under 500. And they're not an SEC program by any means, but if you can have a performance like that week in and week out for Auburn, you're going to turn some heads. You're going to cause a problem for quite a few offenses out there. So I'll get Trill Carter to replicate that in the games that Auburn's playing this year. So I'm looking at Trill Carter on defense. I'm looking at Jeremiah Wright on offense. And, for an Auburn team that should make a splash this year and should make an impact when it's all said and done. So now I head to 6th place. And there's probably a team that you're thinking to yourself, I must have missed this one. Maybe I got to go back. I haven't heard them yet. I know they're not in the top 6 with that head coach. I know they're not in the top 6 with the hardest schedule in the country, maybe of all time. I know they're not in the top 6 with some question marks on the defense and on the offensive line. Well, folks, you are wrong. You did not miss them. In 6th place, shocking the world, the Florida Gators. Here we go. This is it. I'm telling you, it's coming around, right? People are out on Billy Napier. The highest odds to get fired first out of any coach right now. 4-1 odds on, DraftKings or FanDuel, one of the two. Okay, cool. Let those guys take your money. I sleep fine, man. I'm telling you, he is the guy. I've listened to him speak in person. The culture is there. You guys don't understand what happened behind the scenes during the Mullen era. I speak not as an insider by any means, but someone who is, loosely connected to other insiders and that know the truth. Billy is the guy. It was just going to take time. Here's the way I look at this, right? Neil Brown last year at West Virginia. Oh, he's fired. He's gone. No chance West Virginia does anything. And then look at what they do. They have a great year. 2 years prior, Mike Norvell is terrible at Florida State. They lost to Jacksonville State. His seat. They haven't made a bowl game under him. Oh, they're screwed. They're screwed. Now he's now he's a magician that's done all these great things for Florida State. So I look at those things and I ask myself, why can't Billy do that? Like, people harp on Billy's record is 11-14 through 2 seasons. What was Mike Norvell's through 2 seasons? What was Mike Norvell's record through 2 seasons at FSU? At Free Shoes University in the ACC. What was the record? I'll give you a second to think about it. It was 8-13. It was 8-13 in the All Chumps Conference, right? You get to play Georgia Tech. You get to play Duke. You don't get that. You don't get that in the SEC, right? So it's like, give the guy some time. I know we live in an impatient era. I know we live in the TikTok era and the NIL era where everyone's like they need that immediate satisfaction, that gratification. But just give the man some time. And I think it's going to come together, and I think it comes together this year. Regardless of the fact that schedule is so hard, regardless of the fact that there's some questions out there, and there are, we'll get to those questions because I got them too. Don't you worry. But I think it comes together this year. I think Florida shocks the world, especially with a 5-star quarterback waiting in the wings in 2025. This is going to be the turning point for this team. I'm telling you, man. But let's take a look at the depth chart. I'm getting a little hyped right now. I'm sorry. I know this is not officially a Florida Gators channel, but I'm ready to run through a wall for Billy Napier when it's all said and done. So if we look at the offense is going to be the strong suit for Florida this year. The O-line should be improved. You bring in, I like the addition of Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon from San Diego State on that tackle. You got Damian George back in his natural guard position. You got some starters in them. Jake Slaughter had some starts over the course of last year. Austin Butler is better. Austin Barber is back at that left tackle. So, there's an O-line that should be improved and should be better. You get Graham Mertz back there. If the numbers Graham Mertz put up last year, if he was on a 9-win team or a playoff caliber team, he would be in the Heisman contention. Before he got hurt in the middle of that Missouri game, he was on pace for a 3,000-yard season. He ended up with 20 yards or 20 touchdowns. He would have probably had 23, 4 when it was all said and done, right? Like, those are Maxwell numbers when it's all said, especially on a championship contender. So I think Graham Mertz is a serviceable game manager quarterback that made big leaps and bounds last year for this Florida team. As a quarterback and as a leader, he won this team over instantly. I expect more of that leadership as a team over the course of this year. When you look at the rest of this team, I think Montrell Johnson is one of the top running backs in this conference. And the fact that he wasn't up for first team or second team all SEC is criminal. This is a guy who's, run for 800 yards and 12 touchdowns in the past. He's going to hit a buck. I'm telling you, Montrell is going to hit 1,000 yards this year. He's one of those guys who don't play with them. At the receiver, in the receiver room, you got, Elijah Badger comes in from Arizona State. That guy's going to be a problem. You bring in Shamir Adike, Mertz's partner in crime over at Wisconsin, took a step back after Mertz left, right? Mertz's former +1 guy. Now you pair him back in Gainesville. He's going to be a problem. Eugene Wilson, as a true freshman, 6 touchdowns, 500+ yards, and he didn't play a full season because of injury. The guy's going to hit a buck this year. I'm telling you, this offense is loaded. It's loaded. If the line can come together, if Mertz plays smart and everything else comes together, this offense is going to run through everyone. Now, the defense was not good last year. They have not been good for about 6 years. The last good Florida defense was 2019, 18 or 19, one of the two. So it's been a while since we've had an elite defense. I don't think they end up being elite this year. I think they are serviceable, and they're on the track to being elite. It's going to take some time. I think the D-line is going to be average. I like Cam Jackson in the middle there. He's a hungry guy. He wants to take ETN's head off. He has got that Georgia game circled. I love it. I love to hear it. But outside of that, you got your main guy there. I like Tyreek Sapp there. Caleb Banks has his moments. So I'm just looking for someone to step up in that kind of capacity. The linebacker room, I think, has some question marks behind it. You got Shamar James coming back. That's a big one. But you got Justice Boone coming back from a year-ending injury. He didn't play at all. How does he adapt? You bring in Pup Howard from South Carolina. What contributions does he make to this team? Time will tell. That's the one I don't know a whole lot about at this time. I want to see how that comes together. Look at the DB room. You bring in Asa Turner at safety from Washington. So a guy who just played in the national championship game. Compare that with Jordan Castell, who, did what he did as a true freshman in the SEC, which is more or less unheard of. You got Jason Marshall back there, who's had some up and down moments over the course of his Gator career. He's looking to make an impact. But the DB room and the linebacker room are the ones I'm the least sure about at this time from a pure returning production standpoint. Who's going to step up and be the dominant player that Florida has needed at defense for so long? Time will tell, but I think the pieces are starting to come together for Florida to do some great things this year. On the offensive side of the ball, my breakout player will be on the O-line. I'll go with Kanaji Harris. So again, the O-line is going to need to take a step, and I think Harris, he's going to be the youngest one. Played in all 12 games last year as a true freshman. As a rotational guy, seems to be going as the full-time starter at left guard right now. That's a big ask, and I don't think those coaches put him out there if he's not ready. So I'm looking at Harris to be the guy for Florida on the left-hand side, right between Barber, right between Slaughter, and someone who's going to, take on the pressure that is going to be heading his way. I think the right-hand side of this O-line is going to be a little bit stronger, and it's going to take a guy like Harris stepping up into an uncomfortable position and making himself comfortable. That is what's going to make Florida successful on the line this year. So I think Harris is the guy to do it. I think he can step up to the plate. It's just going to be a matter of, it's going to be a matter of when. Does he seize his opportunities? On the defensive side of the ball, I will go with that linebacker room. I'm going to go with Pup Howard, man. I'm going to go with Grayson Pup Howard. Comes in from South Carolina. Did play as a true freshman. Had a 3-tackle performance against A&M as well as Tennessee. Two teams that are on Florida's schedule for this year. Two teams that you got to look at and take that seriously, right? So, he's been in his big moments. He's had his opportunities, and it's a matter of, does he do that for Florida the same way that he did for South Carolina? I think he can, and I think he will. It doesn't matter if it's Columbia, Gainesville, or Timbuktu. I think the guy's got the skill set ready to be a great linebacker for this Florida team that is going to surprise a lot of people out there. I'm telling you, keep doubting it, man. Keep laughing. Keep saying, "Oh, Miami's going to smoke you on 8:31." We'll see. We'll see, right? I got that preview video coming. That's about 3-4 weeks away, right? But I'm telling you, this Florida team's going to make some noise this year. As we move on to fifth place, not 15th place. Speaking of a team that made a lot of noise last year, right? A team that no one was really, really high on, and then ended the year in the top 10 and beat Ohio State, right? So again, this is the SEC. Anything can happen. Everyone's got their expectations set on teams A, B, C, and D, and then Team E rolls around and smokes everyone, right? So with that, my 5th place squad, I'm going Missouri. Coach Drinkwitz is doing something special out there, man. I don't know, how he's put this together. It doesn't make sense on paper, but it's working for him. So give him credit where it's due. They're building something real special out there. They're recruiting well. They're well coached, and they're going to make again another impact on this SEC. They're going to be in the thick of it. They're going to be in the playoff hunt. They're going to be all of these things as a result of the roster and the coaching that Coach Drinkwitz has put together out there in Columbia, Missouri. So if we look at the depth chart, as we look at that, so this is an offense first team, no question about it. Offensive line looks amazing. They bring in Marcus Bryant from SMU. They return Connor Tolson, Cameron Johnson, and Armand Membo. So you got more or less 4 returning starters when you bring in Bryant, because he has starter experience at SMU. It's a big couple of gets there for when it's all said and done, right? Those are the types of additions and retentions that you need to be successful in the SEC, regardless of how new or old you are to it. Receiver room is going to be top 5. Obviously, Luther Burden, potentially the most exciting player in college football when it's all said and done. The guy's a tank. He's going to be the number 1 receiver taken overall. Unless you count Travis Hunter as a receiver, I think he's going to play DB, but that's neither here nor there. Luther will be the number 1 true receiver taken in the upcoming draft, bar none. You combine that with Theo Weiss. You combine that with Brett Norfleet at tight end, with Mookie Cooper. It's a good-looking receiver room. Marcus Carroll comes in from Georgia State, potentially the best running back in the conference. I said what I said. Potentially, coming in from Georgia State, and is potentially the best running back in the conference. And you combine that with Brady Cook coming back, who again is to our previous team's discussion, very Graham Mertz-esque, that game manager, the guy that's doing what he needs to do to keep Missouri in a place to win games. So if this all comes together, you're going to see a lot of the yellow and black this year across your screens. The defensive side of the ball, I think I got some questions more than on the offensive side of the ball. D-line looks good. I will say that Johnny Walker is your guy there on the end. You combine that with Christian Williams, Zion Young. You bring in Chris McClellan from Florida. You got some immediate impact players. So I definitely like what's going on at the D-line there. Linebacker is where the questions begin. It's a nice little combo between Chuck Hicks and Tristan Newsom. But again, it's probably, when it's all said and done, with average room compared to the rest of the conference. DB room, it falls further. You bring in Toriano Pride from Clemson, and you pair him up with Joseph Charleston at safety. That's one to look at. Dylan Carnell at the star. So there's some players back there. It's more so the depth that I'm concerned about, and I'm curious how that works when when it's all said and done for this Missouri defense. So on the offensive side of the ball, I'll take Brady Cook, feature Blake, as the breakout player. So these breakouts are not always like players that have never risen to the occasion, right? This could be Brady Cook has a Heisman level campaign. That's the breakout, which I don't think a lot of people have on their radar. So if we look at his performances over the past year, 395 yards passing and 4 touchdowns against Vanderbilt. And I know it's Vanderbilt. I get it. But that's a Burrow-esque performance when it's all said and done. 64 yards rushing and a touchdown against South Carolina. So dual threat, a guy who can get around and extend plays with his legs. That's what you need to see. So which one will we get lined up? Oh, it's Vanderbilt. Okay. So steps back. This is a 50-yard more or less. Oh, that was quick. Hold on. All right. 50. Will he hold on to it right there? So I mean, that's the type of pass. It's very similar to the highlight that I had of Gus Nussmeier or Garrett Nussmeier, where it's just the receiver being the DB and the ball placed perfectly. Exactly what you want to see from your quarterback, and exactly what you're going to see a lot of Brady Cook over the course of this year. So I think the guy's due for a huge year. I think Missouri's on the precipice of something very special that they probably have not experienced in their time as football fans when it's all taken in consideration. I know that 07 team and those early SEC teams that they were a part of, but this Missouri team could be better than that when it's all said and done. It's going to take a big effort from a guy like Brady Cook to get them there. And on the defensive side of the ball, I'll go with Marvin Burks there. So played as a true freshman, I guess predominantly on special teams and as a rotational guy. Picked up a sack against South Dakota. I know that's an FCS squad, but you got to earn your stripes and you got to do what you can do. And then picked up a fumble against Arkansas. So that's your last game of the year. So earning more time as trust is developed, right? So I expect Burks to establish himself as a more permanent spot in the secondary and be the player that Missouri needs back there to ensure that they are in the playoff picture or in the SEC championship picture. But I have them at 5th. They could finish 2nd or 3rd, right? Like these are all very loose series of predictions. And I think Missouri's on they're on the step of something special, and it's going to take an outstanding performance and an outstanding season from a guy like Burks at that safety spot to make that impact that Missouri needs to take that next step and end up in a playoff spot. They are capable of doing it. I think Burks, combined with a great Heisman caliber season from Brady Cook, will make that happen. So now we enter our final four, the top 25% of the conference. I think at this point, all the names are fairly familiar to you all. But in 4th place, I'll go with a flair of something new to the SEC. And with that, my 4th place team is going to be an Alabama team without Nick Saban. Oh, yeah, you thought I was going to say Texas, right? Something new. No, Nick Saban is gone. Kalen DeBoer is in, comes over from Washington after taking them to a national championship last year, and seems to be fitting in immediately in Tuscaloosa, right? So Alabama, you're last year's SEC champs, but this is a new year, new coach, new format, new conference, new everything. None of last year matters. We're past that point. So Alabama is, they're still the mark to beat until otherwise, right? And it doesn't matter who their head coach is until we see results that are contrary to the Bama standard. They're always going to be someone you circle on your schedule. So, and we are looking at their depth chart right now. I got some question marks. I'm not going to lie to you. There's some in and out. There's some influx that I am not necessarily used to seeing when it comes to Alabama. I mean, let's start on their offense. Fortunately, you do bring back Jalen Milroe. I know people have some concerns about him as a passer and everything like that. He still put up, again, Heisman-esque numbers for an Alabama team that made the playoffs. He's still a top 5 quarterback in the conference when it's all said and done. He's still going to be a threat that you got to worry about when you play him. When you look at the O-line, there's some questions. So I'll say I think that's a nice way to put it. You do bring back Parker Brailsford. You do bring back Parker Brailsford, excuse me, comes from Washington. You do bring back Tyler Booker. So you have some starts, you have some returning production, but outside of that, you don't have a lot. It's kind of the Georgia scenario where you lose so many guys every single year. You got to learn how to replace them quickly. From a returning production standpoint, I have some concerns on that front. I have the most concerns on the receiver room because it seems like everyone worth a damn over the last year left after Saban retired. You do have Jeremy Bernard, who comes in from Washington. Outside of that, I do like CJ Depri at tight end. But outside of that, I don't know what to do here. I don't know what to do at running back. I'm looking at, Jam Miller as your guy potentially. But, the body of work is not there right now. It has not been shown. Time will tell, but we'll see what happens when everything opens up in week 1. On the defensive side of the ball, I do like the linebacker room. Nice little duo there of Jihad Campbell and Deontay Lawson. Seems like the defense seems fairly together when it's all said and done. Not a lot of transfers in per se. D-line has some questions. I do like the middle two of Tim Keenan and Tim Smith. Those two guys will make an impact for sure. I think it's a D-line that does not have the history per se at this time, but can step up if need be. And then the DB room is another little Mike about this one right now, right? Where you do have Malachi Moore, who he comes back and makes an immediate impact. You have Delmonte Jackson, who comes in from USC, but really outside of those two, I'll get it. And I'm like, who's your next guy? You bring Keon Sapp, who comes in from Michigan, but really outside of that, it's just a lot of young guys that are needing to step up, sooner rather than later. So when we look at Bama's offense, the breakout player for me is going to be Kendrick Law at receiver there. So that is supposed to be 3 catches, not 3 tackles against Auburn. So that's your Iron Bowl. And then, so that's the quantity play. And then the quality play would be the 34-yard catch against Tennessee. So those are big games, right? I think both of those are home. That could be Iron Bowl was on the road, so that was a 3-game, three catch performance on the road. Tennessee's was at home, so that's a big performance that they had. But the receiver room needs someone to rise to the occasion. And Kendrick Law, to my knowledge, has no touchdowns through his collegiate career heading into his junior year. I'm sure he would like to change that. And he's going to have the opportunity this year with so much turnover and so much stability in the position group. Someone's going to need to break the mold, and I think he's the guy to do it. On the defensive side of the ball, go with the true freshman. Apparently, Xavier Brown's going to be the guy at corner for Alabama this year. 5-star recruit in the class of 2024. True freshman ready to start for Alabama. Now, how often do you hear that, right? Like, it's not happen often. I know Saban's not here to coach him, but if that spot's available and he's ready to step up to the plate, it is an indication that that DeBoer and his coaching staff believe he's ready to make the impact that Alabama needs week after week after week in the toughest conference in the country. To stay out there and shut down other elite quarterbacks. Can he do it? We will see.
It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be something that you necessarily expect. But if the coaches believe in him, it's going to be a great year for him in this Alabama defense. So I'm looking at Xavier Brown on defense. I'll use Kendrick Law on offense for an Alabama team who's going to be right back in the thick of things, regardless of who their head coach is. So now we head to our top three. So at this point, just whoever this is going to be whoever is left out of the conference championship game, right? And at that point, when we look at how everything shakes out, who I've got third place, who will be watching from home instead of playing in Atlanta, will be our newcomer. It will be the Texas Longhorns. So just the bridesmaid of their SEC debut, which means we have a conference championship of Ole Miss versus Tennessee. So I will get to that in a little bit. But let's cover Texas for a second. New kid on the block, right? Ready to step up, ready to make an impact. How does Texas do with so much hype around them, with so much returning production, and with a head coach that has just taken them to the playoffs? The road ahead is going to be harder for them. Definitely not a second guess on that front. So let's see what they look like over the course of this year. If we look at Texas's depth chart, something ironic, if you look at Texas the last few years, when Sark took over, they had to cancel their spring game because they didn't have enough offensive line. They're now at a point where this is the best O-line probably in the SEC. You return 4 of your 5 starting O-linemen, and your fifth is a rotational guy that is going to start. That's a big adjustment for this team, and it really shows the emphasis that Sarkisian has made on building from the trenches. Obviously, you have Quinn Ewers at quarterback. I'm not as hyped about him as some others are. That being said, Quinn Ewers is in my eyes, probably a borderline top 5 quarterback in this conference, and probably will end up as a top 5 when it's all said and done. So they have the O-line play, they have the quarterback play. Receiver room, it's top heavy, right? You have Isaiah Bond coming from Bama, Matthew Golden coming from Houston. You have Amari Niblack at tight end, who comes in from Bama. So you have your weapons already. You'd love to see someone who started at Texas, but this is the transfer portal era. You got to get what you can get. You got to treat it like it's free agency, right? So you got a receiver room that I think has the weapons that you need to be successful. And then you get a full year of CJ Baxter at the starting role. He came in kind of as that second string relief guy last year. Interesting to see what he'll do now as a full-time running back for Texas. On the defensive side of the ball, D-line looks nice. They bring in Trey Moore from UTSA. That's a guy to watch. They have Bill Norton from Arizona, right? So that's a 1-2 punch that beefs up this D-line that honestly really, really needed it. Skipping into the DB room for a second, I think this is a average to above average DB room. You have Andrew Makuba, who comes in from Clemson. He's a huge impact safety. Gonna hurt Clemson this year that they are missing him. You pair him with Derek Williams, who had a great true freshman campaign. Malik Muhammad, true freshman from last year at cornerback. Jody Barron at the star there. There's a lot of talent in this secondary right now. And it's just going to matter of, do they gel? Does the youth turn into experience? Everything along those lines. And then the linebacker room is the one I got the most concerns about is just, again, compared to the rest of the conference. You still have Anthony Hill Jr., who had a phenomenal year one. You combine that with David Gabenda and Baron Sorrell. So I'm not concerned necessarily that any one person in that linebacker room is a liability. It's just, are they better than the groomed out there? And I'd put them in the average to below average spot at this current time, but it would not surprise me if it went the other way quickly. So looking at
The offensive side of the ball, breaking out, will go CJ Baxter in that full-time role. So especially with Jonathan Brooks going down at the end of last year, looking at what Baxter was able to accomplish. So a 90-yard rushing campaign against Kansas State, 117-yard rushing against Iowa State. So let's see which one we pull. I don't remember offhand. We're going to find out, right? It's the Iowa State game. Here we go. So yeah, it doesn't turn off. Oh, hold on. I think that might cut too soon. So this is just a smart run, right? This is a long run. Doesn't get tackled immediately. I gotta work on my editing. Doesn't have that blazing speed in that. Just a matter of following his blockers, seeing where the lanes are open, just running hard. Not fast, but hard. How does that work out? How does that happen for CJ Baxter? What does that look like against SEC defenses versus Big 12 defenses? Time is going to tell, but CJ Baxter as a running back have been very, very high since he was in high school, and I'm interested to see how this comes into fruition over the course of his sophomore campaign. And then on defense, we'll go to that linebacker. We'll go with Maurice Blackwell. So had a pass defended against Oklahoma State, fumble recovered against Washington. So has been a playmaker in the past, has been someone that has made that impact for Texas in some capacity, has that takeaway, has that ability to play back in pass coverage, can do what is needed. I think the linebacker room has a lot more top-heavy options, and it's going to take a big performance out of potentially your oldest guy in Blackwell on a defense that's young but experienced. So if Blackwell can be the senior leader in the linebacker room and can be someone that steps up to the plate, Texas is going to have a great year. I mean, I already think they're going to have a great year. I have them third in the SEC. That clearly puts them in the playoff hunt. So, I look at it through that lens of, Texas is going to have a fantastic year, but it's going to be on the back of a performance like that from Blackwell. Can he be that consistent playmaker for Texas week after week after week? Can CJ Baxter be 1,000-yard back? Can he be a guy that gets 100 yards a game and scores, once a game or once every other game? Can he be that impact player? Time's going to tell, but I think it's going to come together for these teams, especially, as Texas enters their new conference. So, with that comes down to our top two in the conference. Order doesn't particularly matter. They're going to go to the conference championship game anyways. So we'll go Tennessee first. Let's be honest, that's a smidge of bias, but I think Tennessee is due for a big year. It finally comes together for Heupel. Finally, he finally puts it together in a way where Tennessee has the offensive capability to climb the mountaintop. The defense just comes together and is led by some dominant performances. And as a result, Tennessee overcomes the obstacles that are in front of them, overcomes the issues that they've had in the past, and ends up heading to Atlanta for the first time in, probably 20 years? Close to it, yeah. I was going to say, because, if you look at the East, it's been Florida, Georgia, or Mizzou. I got to think about, I don't know if we went in 07. It might have been Georgia, it might have been Tennessee. So if it's 2007, I don't know offhand, but it's probably at least the 2000s. So it's been close to 20 years, if not more. And Tennessee will end up a place they have not been in quite some time. So as we look at Tennessee's depth chart, I like the O-line and the running back room the most. So that being said, I do have some concerns. The O-line is strong from the center to the right. So you have Cooper Mays, Javonte Spraggins, and John Campbell all coming back. I'm curious what the left side of the line does and the experience they can get, but 3 out of 5 is a good place to start. Same with Dylan Sampson. He's 7 touchdown guy, 600-yard guy, Can he develop upon it? Can he be the guy that Tennessee needs to run their veer and shoot, up tempo, go offense? Can he do that for more than 100 snaps a game? More than 100 snaps a season, right? He had 106 rushing attempts last year. Can he do it for 150? Can he do it for 200? Can he build up the endurance to take a hit every 3 yards? Time's going to tell, right? Can Nico live up to the expectations at quarterback? This is a guy we have not seen a lot of. What we have seen is promising. What we have seen is very enticing as a Tennessee fan. Can he live up to those expectations? We're going to find out this year. On the receiver room, can they live up to those expectations? Can Chris Brazzell make the impact that he's made at Tulane? Can Squirrel White find the end zone more often? Can Brew McCoy increase those yards? Things like that, right? Time will tell on that front. On the defensive side of the ball, it's the same deal. If I look at the D line, I like Murray Torres, but where do the rest of the guys play into play? James Pierce obviously is a top 10 pick at the time right now. Will he be the focus of a team's entire O-line, and therefore who steps up outside of him? Time will tell, right? With the linebacker room, you got Keenan Peely, but who steps up around side of him? It's a linebacker room that is very top-heavy in that point. So where's the depth? If you look at the DB room, you have Jacoby Thomas, who comes in from Middle Tennessee. You have Jermod McCoy, who comes in from Oregon State. So who amongst the homegrown talent is going to step up from Tennessee? Time's going to tell it. Somebody will. That's the key. Somebody will. And I got my guesses as to who I think these people are going to be. On offense, we're going Nico. I'm going to try to get this name. If I can say Uyangalele, I can figure out how to say this last name, right? I am a Leia. Wow. Okay. We're going Nico for the time being. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. But obviously sat behind Joe Milton, sat behind, a Tennessee team that was rebuilding last year after a great year under Hendon Hooker, and learned the offense that he's going to need to run this year. We'll see what this looked like against, I think this is the UConn game that I clipped here. Yes. It's about a 20-yard pass. I think it is. I don't think he runs it. Yeah, it's a little bit on the receiver, if I do say so myself, but let's run that one more time. So it's about on the 18-yard line, roughly. So just snaps, things, fakes a run right there, just pocket presence. That's what you want to see. So he's had 86 yards passing in a touchdown versus UConn. But that running performance against Iowa was the same. 3 rushing touchdowns. Like, this guy has Heisman winner all over him when it's all said and done. I don't think this is the year, but good Lord, he's going to be a problem. But, I think he's got this year, probably next year, and then he's probably gone. Someone is going to grab this kid just based on raw potential. But Nico is going to go down as a Tennessee legend when it's all said and done. He will be their best quarterback since Peyton Manning. I'm making a lot of big statements here. That's no disrespect to a guy like Hendon Hooker. But I think Nico has the ability to do special things at a very young age. You're going to see what that looks like over the course of this year as Tennessee makes their way back to Atlanta for the first time since I honestly don't know when they've been there. I want to say 2007, but it might have been 03, 01. I have no idea. So on the defensive side of the ball, we are going to go to the DB room. Let's go with Ricky Gibson. Played sparingly as a true freshman, didn't redshirt, so was able to get a pass defended against Georgia. And again, that's Georgia, not Georgia State, not Georgia Southern, not Georgia Tech, Georgia. And getting that type of experience, getting a one-on-one battle, in that case winning, it builds the morale and it builds the spirit. Shows you that he can do it.
4 tackle performance against UConn. Well, it's UConn, but it's like you got to earn your stripes. So in a DB room that I think has some questions, will these new kids blend in? Will the young kids step up to the plate? It's going to take one of those young kids answering that question and emphatically saying, I will be the reason we win. I think Ricky Gibson is the guy that can get that done when it's all said and done. I think that in a Heisman caliber performance out of Nico this year is going to put Tennessee right on the cusp of something very, very special. That's going to make Knoxville feel like it's 1998. And finally, we'll head over to Ole Miss. So I have them first. Again, regular season doesn't matter. All that matters is that conference championship game. But Lane takes him to Atlanta, something he has not done, right? Isn't that a fun matchup? Lane against Tennessee, his former team, the one that he abandoned after 1 year. Isn't this just great, right? Isn't this just fun? But Lane Kiffin, year 5, ready to make that move. The writing's been on the wall for quite some time right now that we're ready to make that jump, and this is the year that gets done. They have just abused the transfer portal. It makes Florida State look like Clemson, man. Like they are just taking whoever they want, wherever they want, and building a free agency super team. That's what I expect about Lane Kiffin. That's the type of flash and pizzazz that he brings, right? So I think it works out for Ole Miss in a way that it has not for them historically. Again, I don't know the last time Ole Miss has went to a conference championship game. I would have to look it up. If I'm not mistaken, they may be one of the teams that has no SEC conference championship here. It's them or Mississippi State, but I think Mississippi State is known before. So I think Ole Miss could be going to their first SEC championship game. That's one of those CBS trivia questions from a better time when the SEC was on CBS, but it's not getting that. If we look at the depth chart here and what we're entering, offense is emphatically stacked from top to bottom. It's the best receiver room in the conference. Antoine Wells comes in from South Carolina. The guy is a tank. It's over. You're not going to get him. Trey Harris is your number 1 or 2 guy, but good Lord, stop at either one of them. Caden Prierscorn at tight end, one of the best red zone threats in the country. And then even Jordan Watkins is a 740-pound or a 740-yard guy, right? Like this receiving room is insane when it's all said and done. I think the O-line room is top 5 in the conference when we get it done. You bring in Nate Coleplo from Washington, Caleb Warren is from Ole Miss. Excuse me, I'm reading my notes wrong. So you bring those 2 guys in. You combine that with Diego Pounds, who comes in from North Carolina, Julius Bulo from Washington, Micah Pettis, who's homegrown. Like it's a top. There's a ton of experience on this team when it's all said and done. Jackson Dart, top 5 quarterback in this conference for sure. Again, 3,300 yards, 23 touchdowns, like going to be in the Heisman contention. And then you have Ulysses Bentley at running back. I think he's top 3. He'll hit 1,000 yards for sure. This offense is going to be one of the best in the conference, if not one of the best in the country when it's all said and done. It's the type of offense that Lincoln Riley wishes he can run. It's that good looking. If we look at the defensive side of the ball, this is where Ole Miss has lost games in the past, but I think they have the best D-line in the conference. They brought in Walter Nolan from Texas A&M. They brought in Princely Umemielen from Florida. You combine that with J.J. Pegus and Jared Ivey, and you have a playmaker at every single spot on that line. If you look at the DB room, this is a top 3 in the conference. You bring in Trey Amos from Alabama. You bring in Isaiah Hamilton from Houston. You bring in Brandon Turnage from Tennessee. You combine that with
Trey Washington and John Saunders, and you have a DB room that should be able to lock anyone down. The linebacker room is the only room that I see on this team that I would see is remotely pedestrian, and that's really just because of, it's a two-person room. It's very top-heavy with Chris Paul coming in from Arkansas. So again, this is going to take a little bit of time for them to all mesh together, but this is the best-looking Ole Miss team that I've seen in quite some time. If we look at the offensive breakout player, I'm going to go with that O-line. I'll go with Julius Bulo, who comes in from Washington, 4-star recruit from the class of 2019. Guy was just starting and rotating on a national championship appearing team, and now is ready to make the climb again in Oxford, Mississippi. He's got it, and it's hard to call a breakout player on an offense that is full of stars. But I look at this and say, this is his, this is the tape he's going to have before the draft. Like, that's what he's here to do. That's what he's here to make for an Ole Miss offense that is going to rock and roll. There's no way around it. Ole Miss is going to crush people. And it's going to come from high-level performances on every single position. And, the offensive line is going to be one of those key spots. And I think Bulo is going to take that, Belo is going to take that, championship appearing mentality and bring it to an O-line that is going to need that mentality to take that next step. It's going to be a great year for him and a great year for Ole Miss across the board. And on defense, I'll go with Suntarine Perkins at that linebacker spot. Young kid, played as a true freshman and had an impact, right? 2 sacks against Alabama, pass defended against Mercer. And I know it's Mercer. I get that. But you got to earn your stripes. But a 2-sack performance against Alabama, that was a Nick Saban coach Alabama. This was not Kalen DeBoer. This was not Don Shula. This was not, Rich Rodriguez, right? This was, the GOAT, right? And he went through that O-line. He went right to, he went right to the QB, did what he needed to do. If he can do 2 sacks against Bama, he can do 2 sacks against Georgia. He can do 2 sacks against LSU. He can do 2 sacks against Texas, right? Or Tennessee, or any of them. So it's going to be a big ask of him, being one of the youngest guys on this team, but he can do it. And we've seen in the small sample size as a true freshman, but we expect that to grow as a sophomore. And we expect more, more development and more maturity and more impact and more playing time as a result of that. So I want you to keep your eye on Suntarine Perkins. I think the guy's up for a huge year. And Ole Miss as a whole is going to be a team that is going to be tough to stop. So just to recap, okay. That gives something away. Let's not use that. Alrighty. So just to give you a recap of how everything went or where everything ended up. And again, this is a loose prediction of some capacity. So like if you think if you think A&M is going to finish in 7th instead of 9th, I can probably believe that. So I'll tell you where I have everyone grouped up. So again, Vanderbilt 16th, Arkansas 15th. I could see that flipping, honestly. I have South Carolina 14th, Mississippi State 13th. I could see that flipping. Tennessee in 12th. I think that's pretty accurate for them. Georgia 11th, Oklahoma 10th. I could see that flipping. A&M in 9th. I think that's kind of where they top off. The next 3, LSU, Auburn, Florida, flip them in any order as you please. If you think Florida's going to come in 8th, I'm not going to bite your head off about it. I think you will bite mine off with me having them in 6th, but it is what it is. And then the top 5 to me are all interchangeable. It just came down to tiebreaker, strength of schedule, who beat who, everything along those lines. So Missouri, Alabama, Texas, Tennessee, and Ole Miss to me are all in that like top tier, and only 2 of them are going to make it. But now it's time for the official prediction. Don't go back too far if you want somewhat of a surprise. But Ole Miss at Tennessee. Which one takes it home? Is it the Lane Train or is it Rocky Top? Who's going to be the one that that gets that auto bid to the college football playoff and takes their team to a first round bye? And with that, it'll be Tennessee. Tennessee will win their first conference championship since I don't know when. I want to say it's 1998. I could be wrong though, but I think this is the year it comes together for Tennessee. And I hate that because I hate Tennessee with every bone in my body. But if this is not an olive branch to anyone who thinks this is a biased channel, if this is not an olive branch to Tennessee fans, I'm telling you that this is the year it comes together. I think Nico is the guy. I think the defense steps up. All of that happens to get Tennessee into that first round bye, into a great place, and a reflection of everything that Heupel has brought to that program. So, what do you think happens in the SEC? Am I a crazy person thinking it's not Georgia versus Texas or Alabama versus Missouri? Tell me where you think I'm wrong. Tell me where you think I'm right. Let's engage in the comments below. But thanks for tuning into this one. That concludes the Power 4 portion of these conference previews. Group of 5 is up next. I'm going to try to breeze through those because we are, I'm recording at about 2 a.m. Eastern on August 3rd. So we are 21 days away from kickoff in Dublin, Ireland. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to starting the season with you. But until those next videos come out, like, subscribe, comment, do whatever you got to do. And looking forward to starting the season soon. So thanks for watching, and next one will be coming out soon.